What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the site. Today we're going to be covering the idea of should you compete. So we're going to be looking at both powerlifting and bodybuilding and sort of weighing up the pros and cons of competing and really sort of opening your eyes to things that you should consider if you're someone who sits there and think, yeah, I'd quite like to compete, but I don't know if I'm going to do it. Hopefully this video will give you some food for thought to the answer of that question. We're going to start off by looking at bodybuilding, because this is something that I think needs to be discussed a little bit more than powerlifting, and there's a little bit more that needs to go into the process when it comes to thinking about whether or not you want to compete, just down to the nature of it's quite easy to just walk into a powerlifting meet with very little mental or physical health complication attached to that, whereas the implications of a bodybuilding competition are more severe, even at regional level. So there's more to consider. So first things first, I think that there is almost this idea or consensus of to be accepted or respected within the industry, you have to compete. And I really don't like that consensus whatsoever. I don't think it holds any value, and I don't think that it's even remotely true. When we look at the industry, and I'm going to apply more context from a coaching perspective, because I think that a lot of people do it for the coaching benefit, it doesn't make you any better of a coach. Sure, you may pick up a couple of clients off the back of it or gain a little bit of social media attraction, which indirectly will cause you to pick up a few clients. But I think that people almost compete because they think that they have to be recognized as a good coach. And I would in fact argue that it doesn't make you any better of a coach, apart from maybe allowing you to reason with competitive clients yourself. Nor do I think that you have to compete to be a good coach. So there's some sort of food for thought when it comes to the coaching side of things. But if we look more from a competitive standpoint as well as an athlete, there are going to be implications from competing, and I don't like the idea that it is based on judgment, and I understand there's no way around that. But if you consider a novice competitor, say he or she walked into their first ever competition, they have achieved many accomplishments, yet can still view the whole process as a massive failure. They could bring the absolute best physique they've ever brought. They've never been this low body fat before. They've never looked this good before. They've never felt so good within the way that they looked before. They've completed a whole bodybuilding prep, which in itself is an absolute huge accomplishment, and they've shown levels of discipline that they have never come close to before. And all of these huge accomplishments can be completely overwritten by the idea that the judge preferred the look of someone else, or someone else had a better genetic predisposition. And because of that, our individual lost, they didn't win, and probably if they care about the sport, they will view that as a failure, because most people go to win, of course. So if they then deem that whole process as a failure, they lose their love for the sport after achieving all these accomplishments. That doesn't sit all too well with me. I don't like that idea. Another thing to consider is the health side of things. Is it healthy to compete in bodybuilding? No, not at all. Some people will look at guys in shape or girls in shape and say, oh, they compete within a physique orientated sport, or they've got a six-pack, they must be really, really healthy. I'd in fact argue that it's one of the most unhealthy sports you can participate in, just down to the nature of the stress that you provide on your body from both a mental and physical perspective, and social perspective actually. So it really isn't a healthy sport. If you think, is being that lean and that low body fat percentage healthy? No. Is the prep in general with a consistent calorie deficit healthy? No. Is it healthy when you probably end up with some bad relationship to food that could yield a post-prep binge or general bad relationship with food and expenditure? No. So from a physical standpoint, we're already seeing negative implications. Let's look from a mental perspective. Is it healthy to constantly compare yourself to others and allow the judgment of another individual reign supreme over your personal fulfillment? No. From a social perspective, is it healthy to shove people away from you because you're on such low calories that you can't even deal with their company? Is it healthy to not go to social events and not socialize whatsoever because you must rein, this compliance in to the T, which of course I agree with if you're doing a prep, but if you're not someone who's serious, is that healthy from a social perspective? No. So when we look back on a social, mental and physical standpoint, is it healthy to compete? No, not in the slightest. So again, you must consider, do I actually want to compete here? And is the gain that I'm going to get out of competing, whatever that may be for you, worth this, you know, what's it called? Compromise across the board. Get my words out. I do want to just make the disclaimer, I'm not out here to try and put you off competing. I appreciate I'm giving many negatives and not many positives. We will come on to the positives. It's just a case for me of really wanting you to understand the implications that can, and to be honest, probably will come with the competitive process, because I think a lot of people are blind to that. A lot of people see the six packs, they see the tan, they see the medals, they see the clout on social media, and they think, woo, let's do a competition. But they don't quite understand, as I've said, the social, the mental, the physical implications that come, and I really want you to understand that so that you don't make the wrong decision for you. Now, there are huge pros to competing, one of which I think is actually just the experience. I think it's such a cool thing to compete. It's something that's on a lot of people's fitness bucket lists. I know for me it is. One day I want to compete. Do I want to be competitive at the highest levels? I mean, of course, yes, I do want to do that, but it's not something that's my primary goal, and it's not something that I would do the competition for necessarily, as weird as that may sound. I want to just compete to say that I've competed and to have experienced what I'm putting clients through all the time, It's something that I want to do. And if that's your reason, to me, that's more than enough. If you want to do it, you've already answered the question of should I compete, because you do. So there's, of course, the experience. A lot of people want to just show off their hard work. If you've gone out and put work in the gym and your diet and your recovery for years and years, and you want to showcase that hard work, a competition is a great way to do that. Some people want to use it as a time bound, which I think is really important when we throw it back to our SMART goals that we all had to set in GCSE PE. Having a time bound makes your goal SMART. And if we don't have that time bound, there's never going to be really an incentive to comply towards a goal in most cases. So having that competition date gives you something to say, no, I'm not going to go out and binge. No, I'm not going to go to the social event because of this. And if you have this, it does allow you to make smarter decisions if that's what you want to work towards. Looking at the powerlifting side of things, it's a lot easier to convince yourself to do a powerlifting competition than it is to do a bodybuilding competition. And I think that this stems around for them being a lot less to lose within a powerlifting meet. You can walk into a powerlifting meet at your current body weight, with your current training standard, eating your current diet, sleeping for the same amount of time as you have been recently, and you can get a feel for the whole sport within that day. You can compare yourself to the standard of lifting that is there. You're not subject to any judgment that will impair your love for the sport. You are competing against you and yourself alone, unless of course you're going in for records or whatever, which is unlikely at the first meet you ever do. And you can complete the day to the fullest and get a complete experience for enjoyment as you are. There's no need to go through the endeavours of a prep for that meet. Of course it's advantageous to do so, but you don't need to do that. Whereas with bodybuilding, if you waltz into a competition there, unless you are a genetic freak who happens to walk around tanned as anything at 5% or less body fat, you're probably going to come last, you're not going to enjoy the day, and you're not going to get a feel for the sport whatsoever. And if you do get a feel for the sport, I doubt it will be a good one. So it's much easier to convince yourself to go into the world of powerlifting, and because of that, there are more average lifters competing. It's rare that you'll find a low standard in bodybuilding because you have to commit so much to get to the stage in itself. Whereas with powerlifting, as anyone can go, anyone can turn up, and you can be competing against anyone. So often the standard is average, and you can actually do much better than you think you would, because the interpretation of powerlifting is the likes of Dan Green, Larry Wheels, Hafthor Bjornsson now, and they are not the average guy that you will be up against at your local first meet. So it is actually often a surprise how well you can do. Because of that as well, you'll probably end up enjoying it a lot more. Now, something I do want to mention on the topic of powerlifting is that if you are someone who wants to compete, please just compete. And I don't mean just walk into a meet next week. I mean, please just sign up for your first meet, because I hear all the time this idea of, well, I want to get stronger first. But if we throw it back to that year 10 SMART goal selection, the idea of stronger isn't a good goal. It's not measurable, it's not achievable, and so it's always going to beat you, in the sense of you're always going to want to be that little bit stronger before you go. If we were to apply some numerical value to that term, if you squatted 190 kilos, you would say, well, I want to get 200 before the competition. 200 rolls around, you think, oh, well, I'm not far off 5 plates now. Then you see the British record is 235. You think, oh, well, I'll just train for that first. And you never actually get your first competition done. So just sign up, please. I can't stress that enough. If you are someone who is apprehensive about competing, then we have a full guide available that will kind of cover every variable that you need to consider when competing, in powerlifting, that is. So within the training edition of our fundamental series of ebooks, we have a whole section dedicated to your first powerlifting meet. And this is something that I'd really recommend you have a read of. It will be linked in the first link in the description on YouTube, or if you're on the website, you can head to the ebook page and check it out yourself. And I'd really recommend having a little look at that ebook. You can see the contents page without purchasing it, so take a look and let me know, or have a read and let me know what your thoughts are. If there's anything else I can help you with, of course, I'd be happy to do so. But this will kind of run you through everything you need to know for the run up to the meet, the sign up process, what actually happens when you get there, so the check-in, the equipment check, the rules and regulations, the day itself, how you should be eating on the day, how you should be training towards the meet, all those stuff are covered. So hopefully that has given you a bit of an insight into the world of competing and given you a little bit of food for thought when it comes to, should I compete? I hope I haven't put anyone off competing. I hope I haven't pressured anyone into competing. This video is simply just here so I can give you the information you need to be able to best select whether or not you're going to compete, because I think there is just a complete cover-up of the sheer implications that can come from competing, but also the sheer value that you can get out of just signing up for a competition in a powerlifting situation. But I hope that has given you some food for thought, guys. Let me know if there's anything you want to see come to the site. My Instagram is here. I'd love to hear your feedback on the current content we have available. I'd also love to hear your ideas moving forward with further videos you'd like to see on the channel. And we'll see you in the next one.